In the vast majority of cases, unfortunately, a law firm, and actually a company too, so this will happen to your clients, will find out about it after the fact. Usually they get notified by a third party. Most of the time that would be law enforcement telling them, oh, by the way, your network's been breached for about a year now and everything's been getting read. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, okay, well, hey, my firm's not that big. How big a problem could this be? Actually, there is a very well-respected report done by Verizon called the Data Breach Investigation Report. It's done yearly. It's not only Verizon's team, but they also deal with a lot of governmental entities, different sources like Interpol, Secret Service, etc. And in this most recent one, the 2012 edition, approximately 70% of the breaches they saw were from companies with 100 or less employees. So yeah, it means you. Now, what are the threshold concerns when you run into something like this? Well, first and foremost, it is bad PR. It's potentially embarrassing to the firm, and of course, are your clients really going to trust you if you can't hold their data safe? It's a definite concern. Now, if you're wondering in terms of civil liability, it's an odd thing at this point. Right now, the cases have a lot of trouble basically getting ground because the standing issue is getting in the way. If you can't get standing, of course, you can't really sue. And in a couple of cases where there has been standing, I mentioned Krotner v. Starbucks up on the board there. Yeah, they had standing, but it was still denied because it wasn't found as an injury in fact. A lot of the problem with a data breach is it's the idea that eventually someone could use this information and that could be a problem. That's good defensively, and there's even an extreme example from the Eastern District of Missouri from 2009, in which this case was called Ambergy versus Express Scripts, Inc. The court found that there was no injury even though the defendant had received two extortion letters threatening to disclose the breach. Still nothing. Now, there have been a couple of cases where there's been a case allowed to proceed, but they're pretty extreme. It's usually actual misuse of the data. There's one from the Northern District of Illinois in 2009 called Shames-Yakel v. Citizens Financial Bank, in which basically the bank's security was challenged as being a little too lax. What had happened here was the plaintiffs were permitted to continue their suit because a hacker coming from a different IP address, an IP address locates where you are on the net. That's why if you bring your computer to, say, Seattle one day, well, it'll tell you what the weather in Seattle's like instead of telling you the weather in New York. Your computer can figure out your address that way. And coming from a different IP address, a loan was taken out using the plaintiff's account for about $26,000. Then to follow it up, add insult to injury, the bank tried to bill them for it. So of course they brought suit. Now, there's one other case I would point out. It's from the First Circuit. It's called Anderson v. Hannaford Brothers from the First Circuit, 2011. That's a case in which mitigation costs were permitted, not a huge amount, of course. And that's basically card replacement and like ID insurance, effectively.